I don't really play video games anymore. First off, I don't have as much time as I used to when I was younger, and secondly, I just don't really enjoy most games anymore. But there is one exception, one game that I still consistently play, and that's Enter the Gungeon. Sure, I'll occasionally boot up Hollow Knight and try to beat Pantheon of Hallownest, some Elden Ring when I feel especially masochistic, or some Doom Eternal when I want to blow off steam, but Enter the Gungeon takes all the reasons why I play those games and just does them better. I think the reason why is that Gungeon, unlike those games I just listed, is a roguelike, an experience where every playthrough is entirely randomized. While the core gameplay loop is going to remain relatively unchanged each playthrough, your actual play experience, as well as play style, are almost definitely going to be drastically different. The items and weapons you encounter are often unique, fundamentally altering your gameplay without bending the game's rules. It's like the game sets up the parameters, and it's up to you to navigate through an infinite variety of playstyles based on the hand RNGs this gives you. Limitless replayability comes from infinite versatility. This is emphasized by the fact that you can usually change how you'll start a run with a character or item selection. For example, if on a run in Gungeon I play as the Huntress, I can one-shot most enemies on the first 2 floors with my long-range crossbow. This incentivizes the player to snipe enemies from across the room and clear out stragglers with the sidearm. Alternatively, playing as the Convict, I get a close-range shotgun that deals high damage, which benefits players who like getting up close and personal. And if I play as the unlockable gunslinger character, I basically play on easy mode. And that's just taking character selection into consideration. As mentioned earlier, once you get through the first couple of floors, your playstyle becomes more governed by your weapons and items, which can range anywhere from machine guns to baseball bats. I got this item that pretty much makes my projectiles bombs. As you can see, I absolutely shred through the boss on that floor, but fast forward, and I almost lost the run in this room, which would otherwise be very easy. This single item completely changed how I had to play the game. These games are designed to make you hit the replay button over and over again. When I was recording B-roll footage for this video, I loaded up one of the games I offhandedly mentioned earlier, Hell's Other Demons. I needed about probably 3 seconds of footage at most, but I played for at least half an hour before I decided I need to go on to the next game. Another thing to note is that roguelikes are generally very hard. You will die on the first couple of levels over and over and over, but if it's a balanced and well-designed game, it won't feel unfair. Usually, a death in most games feels cheap and undeserved. In a roguelike, it's almost always because you simply just aren't good enough. Now, there's always a few exceptions to this, where it is based on RNG, like that run in Isaac I mentioned earlier. Sure, it was my fault for not being good with the item, but it's also not designed for single enemy encounters, so I got screwed by something that was out of my control. Of course, this is usually just because of really hard enemies though. Looking at you, Amaconda, I swear, this thing is more annoying than Primal Aspids. Having to start from square one is definitely irritating at first, but it forces you to learn and actually get noticeably better each run. Now, you may not see immediate results, but every couple of hours during your first playthroughs, there will be substantial leaps forward in terms of skill. Most games try to make you better at them by holding their punches or slowly increasing difficulty, but roguelikes generally go all out and ramp up the challenge very quickly. Unlike most games, you are actually forced to get better if you want to keep playing and progressing. The interesting part is, the game will eventually feel like it's getting easier. And depending on the game, it might be, but in the case of more traditional roguelikes, such as The Binding of Isaac or my beloved Enter the Gungeon, it's actually getting harder, but you're improving faster than the difficulty. However, there's almost always something bigger and badder that you have to overcome, whether that be some crazy secret boss or challenge mode of some kind. Something I really like about Gungeon is how modular the difficulty actually is. There's a bunch of different game modes, like Turbo Mode, where everything is faster, the Blessing of the Gun, where your weapon keeps changing, and one where each room has randomly generated extra challenges. And of course, my personal favorite, Rainbow Runs, where you only get one item per floor, albeit usually a pretty good one. It makes you focus more on building up a planned out arsenal with a little RNG attached, and it allows you more freedom of playstyle. But because your items are very limited, you have to be very careful with your choices, because once you settle for a certain kind of build, it's pretty hard to escape from it. This one simple concept turns the game from a dungeon crawling roguelike to a loadout building bullet hell, where you want to clear as many floors as possible, instead of necessarily actually beating the final boss. The core gameplay, the high action bullet hell, is unchanged, but your goals and how you achieve them is completely transformed. So, why are roguelikes the best genre of video games? Because you take an already fun game and you make it infinitely replayable with an endless level of challenge that you continually have to overcome. And that keeps me coming back for more.